So where are we? Chaps, we've invited Jody, and straight up, we're going to be talking about male domestic violence. And I know people are going to be watching this going, oh, yeah, they're all those blokes beating people up and whatever else. And actually, we're not. We're going to be talking about I don't really like the term male victims. I don't like that term victims, but I don't really like the term survivor either. But I will say you've started refuges. Is that the right word?
Yeah, we've started this Jonathan's house. We're about to open up our first safe house.
Yeah.
We're just going through getting funding for that to ensure it's open. But we're running a helpline which is open 24/7 for men who have experienced abuse or are going through abuse.
Yeah.
I don't like the word victim. I don't like the word survivor, but it's an
Uh,
experience.
yeah, well, I guess it's one of those things. It's however the person you're speaking to, isn't it? Really, what, what, what,
Yeah.
whatever they're doing. But I think the thing is, what attracted to me to your ministry service, whatever buzzwords people want to call it, is you're one of the few ones in. I know you're definitely one of the few ones, if not the only one in Wales. I
There,
could be
there,
wrong.
there are other helplines in Wales, but not many run in the way that we do.
Right, okay.
Um,
No, and I think that's exactly the same with England, because let's face it, if you Google anything to do with domestic violence, it's always the man as the perpetrator, or whatever that word is, and it
yeah,
really, and even if you just can't find help if a bloke has lived through some sort of domestic violence or even sexual abuse or dare I say even rape as well. Trying to get help is really, really difficult.
yeah,
Really, really difficult. And I'd say that some of the articles I have seen, if a bloke's basically, let's face it, been knocked about by his missus, sometimes even his fella as well. I see that every now and again.
mm,
The main thing what people always say is, why didn't you hit him back? So it kind of undermines.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But if for me, if that was the other way round, that question wouldn't be asked. And I
yeah.
have looked at stats where when blokes are being knocked around, and I've spoken to men who have said that they've been raped by their female partner, and the
Yeah.
police are like, nah,
No, well, my wife, she used to work at um the call centers for the police. She was like the receptionist, and she would pass the number over to 999 or 111. And she would come home and say, I can't believe it. She said, the amount of disgust I've heard from the call handlers to men who've called in
yeah,
is disgusting. They've been laughed at.
yeah,
If they come in and say they've been raped, the first question is, how's your partner? Is she okay? Has she been hurt? And that's why our helpline runs differently
yeah,
to respect all other helplines, because we don't use the do laugh model, which
yeah,
basically insinuates that men are guilty and that they have that phone call to prove they're innocent and deserve help.
yeah,
We don't use that model. Although I'm not gullible, I'm not stupid. I
yeah.
know there's 5% of men that are perpetrators and that they are abusive, but I'm not going to hold the 95% to account for the sins of a small percentage of men.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's interesting, sir, because we've had not many trying to get a bloke to come on Man Up to talk about their lived domestic violence, their lived experience through domestic violence. I think we've only got like two or three out of hundreds. I think it's like 500 odd videos now, one-on-one conversations, and it's interesting well, as you know, I don't script these videos. But we don't work like
yeah,
that. But we leave it open, so we're like, okay, let's talk about you, blah blah blah, and the video originally, I'm thinking that like the video originally was going to be talking about their domestic violence, but the minute we hit that record button, they start talking about something else, and it's like there's like I was going to say weird shame, but I don't mean that how that sounds, but there's like a shame that blokes just can't talk about it. And even when we
Yeah.
did, even when we did share those videos, one of the guys, I've forgotten his name, so it looks really bad, doesn't it? There's a guy who done a TED talk on it and all sorts. It was a brilliant video, and sadly enjoyed the video. Just, oops, bear me 1 second. Sorry, I apologise about that. So where are we? That's the wife I'm doing. Who bypasses the do not disturb. But even when we so sorry, even when we shared the video, some of the comments were like, "It happens more to women." And that really did upset me quite a lot because I'm like I'm well aware that it happens to women as well. I'm not naive,
No,
but
no, no.
it's just like but that doesn't mean that we can't highlight that it also happens
What
to men.
happens to men?
And the
Yeah.
thing is that there's all the stats, isn't there? There's all the stats with what we're looking for. There's also the stats that a lot of males who have lived through horrible stuff don't report stuff to the police. And I really do believe I've got no evidence, but I really do believe that if men started to, what's the word I'm looking for? If more men reported issues with domestic violence, even sexual abuse or anything like that, I don't think it would be 10% of men report it. I think it'll be probably 50% of men, which I believe the last I looked, 43% of women lived through domestic violence. Well, it's only 43% of women who report domestic violence.
Mm.
But if men were willing's probably the wrong word yet again, but if men were willing to had the courage or we encouraged it as a society, I really think it would be 50-50.
Yeah. So I know you probably agree, but I don't believe that men have ever had an issue of talking. They've had an issue of whether or not they'll be trusted or listened to.
No, well, I agree
And
with you. Yeah, because if you look at the statistics when it comes down to male suicide, for example, what is it? 91% of them were in frontline services. They were talking.
yeah, yeah. And I think as a society and because I'm a Christian, we're a Christian organization as well. We have we have to take our heads out the sand when it comes to men and actually listening to what they say.
Yeah,
Men will talk, but for the last 15 years, male statistics. So if a boy's been groomed from the age of 13, the government will include that statistic into violence against women and girls. If someone's been cyber attacked sexually, if someone's been a victim of revenge porn, if a man's been domestically abused, if he's been sexually abused. For the last 15 years, the government have been putting those statistics into violence against women and girls. So, as far as they're concerned, there isn't an issue for men because the men are, in fact, regarded to be women. And that for a man, that is really, it's not saying that women are bad, but it's degrading for a man to feel like I'm not important enough to be counted as a man. And
yeah,
in fact, I'm called a woman for being abused.
yeah.
And even that is just like it's suppressing the man from even wanting to talk. Because even if he does share, what help is it? So for men, I think for men to have serious attention paid to them, the government need to start collecting their data properly and saying
Well,
actually men and boys are victims
yeah.
and they deserve support. Male services deserve funding, but at the moment, male services don't get government funding because it's not considered to be a high rate.
Yeah.
But I think over the last 5 or 6 months, I don't know if you noticed, but there's definitely a more increased media coverage on male men who have experienced abuse, like
Well,
on Channel 5,
well,
Channel 4.
it's funny you say that because I know a lot of my trustees joke, but I'm a massive like EastEnders fan.
Yeah.
I love EastEnders. I literally watch it a lot. And but there's a storyline at the moment where basically a young lad, I think he's like 13, 15 or whatever. He's underage. and he stole some money from his grandma or something like that. Yeah, he stole some money from his grandma and all this kind of stuff. And then he stole some money, other money from like a charity box, from like a fundraiser.
Mm.
And his granddad caught him out on it and took the blame for it and blah 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 blah. But it turns out basically what it was is he got cat. I hate the term catfish because it's one of those new buzzwords. But basically, somebody online pretended to be a female, encouraged him to send photos, and said, "Right, I've got the photos now. If you gotta give me three, I think it's 300 quid. I was going to publish them all online." So
Yeah,
there are more and more storylines slowly creeping out. But the sad thing is, like, even if you go on like the BBC and EastEnders website when they're highlighting this, it's like it happens more to everyone else, happens more to everyone else, and and I agree with it. It's really degrading. Like, and it goes back to like our message. What we say quite a lot is, yeah, we encourage men to talk. We always will do. But we massively encourage people to actually just shut up and listen to them as well. You don't even need to understand it. You don't need to have a solution. Just listen. Just listen.
yeah,
If everyone's joking about, oh, you should have hit her back, or I don't know. Say for example, if a female teacher, especially if she's good looking, has been sent to prison or is going to be found has been found guilty for having grooming or having sexual relationship with a student, if she's good looking, have you read some of the comments?
yeah. Especially over the last the incident that came out of Manchester with the teacher who sexually abused those two boys, the
But,
students,
but
and
and she was quite a pretty woman as well, if I remember rightly.
yeah, yeah,
And but the
yeah. And
comment,
so that was a get out clause. I'm pretty. I didn't deserve it.
yeah. But I think when I'm going with some of the comments, and these are just, I'm well aware you're always going to you're always going to get idiots in comments. But if you're a bloke and you're reading that, and you've lived through something and you're so desperate to just talk to somebody about it because I don't know it's
Mm.
basically ruined your life. You can't hold down a relationship. Well, you know all this kind of the knock-on effect of
Yeah.
that trauma just carries on throughout life. So if
Mm.
you're reading stuff of like, oh, she's well fit, I would have smashed that and all blah 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 blah. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that's irrelevant
Mm.
because she basically abused two children. But if that was the other way around, a male teacher abusing a couple of girls or whatever
Yeah, it would have
else,
been disgusting.
obliterated. There'll be Facebook groups about it. The Reddit sleuths will be like hunting him down and making sure. And that's what I get really, really angry about because it's just like, met,
Yeah.
I,
There's
the
no
way,
equality.
yeah, no, exactly that. And I do get very, very cross about, I do get very, very cross about that. Exactly the same, isn't it? It's just like if a bloke, I don't want to turn it into an us and them, but if a bloke uploaded remember the old page three, whatever else, or anything like that, people will be like, that's disgusting, it's sexist, blah, 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 blah. But if a woman shares a photo of Tom Hardy,
Mm.
everyone's like drooling over it and stuff like that. It's just like, well, where's the balance? And that's what really frustrates me. And I think that's what, when we start seeing comments like that, that is what stops men from that's what slows that's what slows men down from talking about abuse. I really
Yeah.
do that because let's face it, I can imagine you speak to them day in out day out. I speak to them quite rarely if I'm honest with you. But asking a bloke to speak out when he's already feeling like a complete failure and everything's broken because men like to fix stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we need to change that. So I'm trying to withhold on a full blown rant.
No, I understand because for me, I went through it in my first marriage.
Right, okay.
I experienced abuse in my first marriage. So I knew, even though it took me a few years after that marriage ended to actually accept I had been abused,
Yeah,
I knew the behavior was wrong, which was going on. So I was sexually abused. I was beaten up. I had my money controlled. I wasn't allowed to see certain people. When I would go into work, my wife would follow me in and say, "You're only here because there's pretty girls here," and cause such a stink. I would have to leave that job.
yeah,
In a 10-year marriage span, I worked 15 jobs. So, and that's all due to the fact that I couldn't hold a job down because she would make accusations. Even though it was only me, who was working, I had £5 to live on each week, and I had to prove what I spent that money on.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I saw the stigma, but at the same time, I don't know if you ever watched. You probably did, like me, watch Friends,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Not, yeah,
the amount of stigma that Joey experienced when he was being abused by his one of his girlfriends.
yeah,
He had name called, had all sorts of insults thrown at him for not standing up to himself, for being a wimp, for being hit by a girl. I think one saying was, "Oh, did the little girlie hurt you?"
yeah,
and all that sort of stuff. And you hear that, and for me, that was going in my mind, thinking, I can't tell anyone because I'm going to be laughed at.
yeah,
So for 10 years, I kept quiet, and I think a lot of men, especially in our generation, I found now I'm 45 now, so our generation find it hard to talk about this stuff. We find it hard to reach out for help because we know our mates at school would have laughed at us.
yeah,
And so we just shut up and we assume that
yeah,
as we get older, those same friends are going to have the same mentality, when in fact they don't.
yeah,
If I was brave enough and sure footed enough to reach out to a friend at that time, I probably would have been helped.
yeah,
But I was afraid to reach out.
yeah,
So it was just that's why I've got a bit of a unique perspective in this,
yeah,
because I've gone through it. I I don't have the I don't know how everyone's feeling,
yeah,
but I know the root feelings,
yeah.
and
Because
it's been able to dig those feelings out.
I was gonna ask you, like, what was your tipping point? Why did you? Because you could have been one of those where you've just healed yourself or whatever, and sorted yourself out and just carried on with life. But then you started the Jonathan Ministries, isn't it?
Jonathan's house.
That's the one. So I apologize. I do all the taggy stuff anyway.
That's right, Don.
I've got a memory like a sieve. So what made you want to go full blown dramatic of just dramatic? But do you get what I mean? Of just going right. I want to start because when I hear stories like this every now and again, a few times a year, the kind of like even after this call, I'll probably end up going for a walk for half hour just to clear my head. But you've chose to call after
Yeah.
call because didn't you like 1 month take over 1,000 calls on your Todd?
No, it was just after Christmas the calls started to increase, and I noticed they're getting a lot more.
Yeah,
It wasn't always from men. Sometimes it was from, especially when my abuser, came out on Channel 5. I would have a lot of people phone up and saying, "I just watched this documentary and I'm worried about my mate. Do you think this is happening to him? How do we help him?" So it
okay.
was a lot of those calls or interactions via web chat were from people who were like worried about their friend because they were seeing stuff, but they weren't sure if what they were seeing was actually abuse. So
That's really interesting. I wasn't expecting. That's really interesting.
yeah. And then when the baby reindeer stuff came out,
Yeah,
our calls increased after that. Our web chat increased. But the majority of the men we're talking to are either going through false accusations,
yeah,
or they're being alienated from their children. They've had some historical abuse going on. And so it can be quite hard, but it wasn't an easy decision to start this off
yeah,
at all. It took me 10 years of going through therapies, talking to people, talking to the police, and facing up to all that anger and just basically having a look at the what was going on in society and thinking, I don't want anyone to go through what I did.
yeah,
And what was out there to help men? Not much.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, you know what? Why don't I just do something? And I am not business minded at all.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the smartest person at all. I really struggle with a lot of these things. I'm now having to experience, and I've never been a director.
Yeah.
I've never been a manager. So this is just like, honestly, it is stretching me to limits I didn't realize I had.
Yeah.
But I thought, I instead of sitting back and complaining that there wasn't anything for men, I should just do it.
Well, I applaud you. I absolutely applaud you on that one. And this is what does frustrate me in the world I live in, really, is I don't know. So, for example, when it comes down to generic mental health, everyone's like, well, the NHS is under-resourced, blah, 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 blah. And we can move into that blame culture really, really easy. Like, oh, there's no
Mm,
help out there. And even with like the domestic violence and sexual abuse stuff, where when it comes down to help for men, we cannot say there is no help at all, because there is other help. It's just really, really difficult to find it. And I think this is why I support people like you, because it's or why we support people like you, because it's about networking and making all of those stigma bubbles smaller and the awareness
yeah,
bubble bigger, if that kind of makes sense as well. So I absolutely applaud you, and I think us as a society, we need more people like you. So I absolutely applaud you, mate.
yeah. And I think because I'm so new to it, I'm doing things a bit differently to other organisations
Yeah,
like us. So I'm where I've made intentions of creating links with other communities,
yeah,
like other organisations in our local area,
yeah,
and creating that strong link. So when a man comes to us, they're not just coming to Jonathan's house for help; they're coming to everything else that I've linked up to.
yeah.
So they
It's
are,
it's the best way, mate. And this is what I realise. I'm no charity guru. I'm really not. I've got a good team as well. But most of my team, we're always arguing between each other. It really does feel like that a lot of the time. But it's just we know we've all said from day one we can never ever fix everyone's mental health. We just can't do it. You can't. Mental health can't. And you're never gonna. I don't want to be harsh. You're never gonna stop domestic violence at all. You don't stand a chance, but you can slow it down, and the only way to do that is by joining forces with other people. I think that's something what
you
really
know
does.
what?
No, go on.
If I only ever see one bloke out of an abusive situation, then I think it's worth it.
Yeah,
Obviously, I'd hope for more,
yeah,
but I'm just aiming for the one
yeah.
at the moment, and then
That's
we
why.
we move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's why, mate. So just before we draw to a close, because I know you got a meeting yourself in a moment. If a bloke was struggling with anything, what with, let's face it, if they feel like they've lived through or living with domestic violence. Like if they approached you, what happens?
So there, if they want to phone us, they can go phone us through our helpline, or they can come to us through our web chat, which is linked to our either our social media pages or our website,
Yeah,
and we'll have the initial conversation. I don't lead the conversation; they do.
yeah,
They have they take it, and then if we need to have a follow up meeting, we'll have a follow up, and that's where it gets real, because the initial phone call is great, but when you have a follow up meeting, like we go for coffee,
yeah,
arrange to go somewhere, and then this chat, because it's a you don't want to be a faceless person on the other side of the phone. I want there to be a relationship.
yeah,
Because I think in relationship, that's what helps. Men don't always. I don't know if you found this, but men don't always talk like in a one-to-one therapy session, but they'll talk while we're sitting in a pub or
yeah,
going fishing or doing stuff like that. So that's what we'll do. We'll arrange that and just meet up, or we have an event on our website which is called the Fires, where we just arrange a sit around a fire pit, 10 or 15 men sit around a fire pit, share our stories.
Yeah.
There's no agenda. There's no harsh feelings. There's no, oh, come here, let me preach at you for a second. That doesn't help anyone. It's just actually just 10 men sharing their stories. And as they're sharing their stories, they're realizing actually I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And what I try to do with Jonathan's House is 4 areas we try to help men with: isolation, feeling of being rejected, shame, and guilt.
Yeah.
And initially, we have to deal with the isolation, and that's what happens when we have our follow-up meetings. We bring them out of isolation, so they're not feeling like they're the only one. They're not feeling like they have to shut themselves off from society, and hopefully through that we deal with their rejection. That my story is not being rejected, so I'm not being rejected. I
Yeah.
don't have to feel any more guilt for this. I don't have to feel ashamed of this because my story's been accepted.
Yeah.
So that's how we do it. And obviously, once we have our safe houses open, we'll have a more physical vehicle helping men. We can help take men out of the abusive situation, and because we accept in their children as well, men don't have that excuse to stay at home.
Yeah.
They can come out and bring their children into a safe environment and be nurtured and be looked after. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Good on you, mate. And like I said before, in the quite a few messages we have, a lot, if we can ever help you with stuff, then please do let us know, really.
Yeah,
Because yeah, it does sadden me how the whole thing just doesn't seem accepted when men reach out, and they just tend to be ignored. And this is why I applaud people like you for setting stuff up like the Jonathan House Ministries, because yeah, if you can help save one mate, one bloke,
no,
then
yeah,
all happy days, mate. So cool. I think that's the end is nigh with this video, mate, because it is one of those what could just
thank
keep
you.
going on and on and on, isn't it? I wanted to get the nitty gritty. So let me hit the record button thingy. 1 second, mate. I can never find it. I keep moving stuff around.